Hey guys, so in this video we are going to talk about easy code and generic code. So let's get into it. So for this to make any type of sense whatsoever to anybody besides me, I'm gonna have to give you a little bit of context, so just bear with me. So currently I am working on basically a suite of tech stories at my company for migrating basically my company's tech stack, or like basically all of the code, to support multiple different types of markets. Because originally the company was catering to the Swedish market, and now we might have to go to new countries and talk to different types of customers around the world, which is a very exciting thing to do. But if you've watched any of my videos about time and language and translations and all these things, you will probably know that, in my personal opinion, when it comes to going from a single country product to an international product, things get very, very complicated. And it is by far one of, if not the biggest changes to a company. Now, some companies get to a really large scale before they need to support multiple markets. The company that I work for is not that big, and is still going to most likely start working with the different countries, which is very exciting overall. But it also puts us in a little bit of a position where now we, with a very small team of people, have to figure out a way to make the code generic enough and scalable enough that we can release to different markets and support different languages and all that good stuff, right? So we had a discussion the other day where we started talking about different approaches to figuring out how to basically solve this problem, right? And what's interesting is that the application structure so far has been a traditional Java-ish service architecture type of deal, where you have your controller, your services, and then you have your database. And that structure should feel fairly familiar to anybody who's worked at the enterprise level before, or at least in Java enterprise type of things. I think this is fairly common in C# as well. But we are working in Scala, and in Scala everything, or rather, it's not everything, it's not about functional programming, but there is a strong move in the industry today to move towards more functional aspects, and my CTO and my colleagues and so forth, they're also very fond of this functional programming paradigm. But we have not actually been there before. Or rather, we have functional aspects, we're functional-ish, but the core of the product is still this service-oriented architecture, or service layer architecture, whatever you want to call it. And what's interesting about this now is that so far for this small startup, this has worked out absolutely flawlessly. And it's made the company go from like just a few people, 3 people, to a company with about 24 people, and it's still growing on this architecture. And it's really now when we start having to support this a lot more complicated use case, where we have different customers that are going to need different things, and they can't all share one code base ideally, because that's a security risk. If one company has functionality in their piece of the product that is also in another piece, it becomes a dangerous situation, right? And what's interesting was that we were talking about, well, we basically have a few ideas, and the people who are behind these ideas represented their different ways of solving these issues. And it's only now, it kind of dawned on me that this is the way things should be. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that back in the day, as a junior software developer, I was watching all the tech talks. And when I mean all the tech talks, that's actually not far from the truth. I could consume on average 10 hours of tech talks a week. And I consumed and consumed and consumed, and I was so convinced that microservices and all this stuff was an amazing idea, and then monads are an amazing idea, and I had all of these different people telling me how awesome all these really cool super engineering types of solutions were. And when I got a little bit more experienced, I realized how absolutely horrible it is to add these things to your project, because they add quite a lot of complexity. And so I came over to the mindset that maybe simple is really better. And I kind of stuck with that, and it's been serving me very well so far. And now that I see this, like when this mountain of complexity and challenges and all this stuff is coming towards me at my company, I finally understand. I feel like I understand now. Let me walk you through it. So, right now, the massive tidal wave, the tsunami of complexity that is going to come with supporting all these different countries and all of these different use cases and like all of this complexity, this monster wave of complexity is coming my way. And it's only now I realize that these more sophisticated solutions that I was sold as a junior that I didn't understand, or rather that I finally realized were very complicated. It's now where I start to realize that this is when you need to use them. Because even though they are more complex than the basic, most easy thing that I could make, the complexity that they bring to the table will mitigate the massive monster of complexity that is coming against me. So basically what I'm starting to the thought I realized when I was just watching one of my colleagues show what I like to say a fairly complicated solution, but it was a very good fit for the project. I sat there and I thought, this is getting tricky, but I can't really see a nicer way to do it. It's better than what we have today. And that's what I want you to take away from this. Because we started out with this simple, very boilerplate, boring application structure that worked really, really well for a very, very long time. But now we're facing an enormous increase in complexity, not because we ourselves added it through code. We didn't make this complexity. It's coming towards us in order for us to keep on growing the company. And the only way we can keep on growing as a company is to add solutions that may increase the overall complexity, but we can't stop it. It's better to the complexity is coming whether or not we like it. But now we have a very good, strong reason for using more sophisticated programming patterns in order to try to mitigate and scale this system when it comes to this greater complexity, right? And that's what I want to leave you with. Get the complexity before you add these more sophisticated programming patterns. I mean, it's easy for somebody to say, if you're a junior, it's very tricky for you to understand, all right, when do I use a more sophisticated solution and when do I use the simple thing? The good rule of thumb here, guys, is always go with the simple solution until you realize that you're actually not able to like you kind of have to make something more advanced in order for it to not be even more complicated with the simple solution. Because you might find that at some point the simple solution has been working, and then finally it just doesn't work anymore. You can't make it work with the simple solution anymore. That's when you upgrade to a more sophisticated solution. Hopefully this was useful to you. Have a great day.